At the foot of the Ngong Hills Wind Power Station, Esther Wazome and her daughter are busy scrolling through her phone. Their attention ensnared by the memories of a son they have not seen for the last 2 years. 31-year-old Anthony Modime is rotting in a South Sudan jail after he and 3 other Kenyans were sentenced to life on what their families maintain are trumped-up charges.
He called me and said, "Mom, we are coming home on the following Wednesday." So he wanted to ask me, "Okay, what do you want me to buy for?" I told him the things that I wanted. He said, "We speak in the evening."
And that was the last she heard from her son. Kilometers away in the Nairobi outskirts of Jericho, yet another family is going through a fallen Christmas. Esther Osanya last saw her husband Anthony Kea early 2015 when he left for greener pastures in South Sudan.
He told me that someone broke into their offices and stole some items. So I knew maybe that is the story that led to their arrest. But I never knew that it's something that will lead for them to be jailed in life.
Similar misery engulfs another family in Parklands area of Nairobi. Tijal Gagda recalls a conversation with her 28-year-old brother Ravi Gagda that ended abruptly.
We were on phone with Ravi when we realized something was going on, and he said there's some people who've come to arrest the owner of the company, so let me call you back.
The promise to call back never came. Instead, what followed were days and then weeks of silence that plunged Ravi's family into panic.
My family traveled to South Sudan to look for him, and when they arrived to the premises of the company and asked around for what happened to these people, they were being threatened, saying if you ask about what has happened to these people, you will be detained as well.
Ravi, Mwadime, Kea and Boniface Muriuki were held incommunicado for 40 days at a military intelligence camp. The first time the family members were allowed to see them was after 6 months.
Outside. And I looked, I said, "There's your son." I said, "Where?" And they said, "You don't know your son?" I said, "No, my son is not there." I couldn't recognize him.
He could barely be recognized because he hadn't shaved, his hair had grown long, it seemed like he wasn't even well.
They were surviving on one meal, that is a bun and a glass of milk.
The families were only allowed 5 minutes of interaction with their sons before they were whisked away. Then the court process that featured a fair share of drama started.
Our lawyer was threatened at gunpoint in front of the judge in a courtroom and forced to drop the case.
The case was concluded quietly without the 4 enjoying legal representation, contrary to the laws of natural justice. The court nevertheless found them guilty of stealing an equivalent of 1.4 billion Kenya shillings from the South Sudan government and sentenced them to life in jail. The families have sought the intervention of the Foreign Affairs Ministry in vain, despite CS Amina Mohammed acknowledging the quartet ordeal amounts to illegal detention.
And she even explained that she knew about the case and she was using diplomatic channels to bring her boys home.
But up to now, there's nothing they're saying.
You know, if you cannot help your fellow people, how do you expect to help the whole Africa? Unless I see my hubby has just landed here. That is what I'll believe.
Kenya and South Sudan do not have a prisoner exchange or extradition agreement, meaning the 4 could spend the rest of their lives away from Kenya unless the government initiates a bilateral transfer to bring them home. Their plea coming in the wake of Zakayo Muriuki, an IT specialist who died in police custody in Ethiopia after Kenya reportedly failed to exert pressure on Addis Ababa for his release. With yet another festive season without the void of their loved ones being filled, the families have been left with one prayer that one day justice will be served and their kins released. Hassan Mugambi, Citizen TV, Nairobi.